Hi, welcome back. Another health focused video today, and we're going to be talking about the new trend in fat loss injections, jabs, whatever you want to call them. There's a few different products out there that have now become incredibly popular and quite controversial online, especially. People have all kinds of comments on these. They're very polarizing, ranging from it's ridiculous that people are taking drugs to lose weight right through to they're fantastic, where can I get them? I have had a friend, a female friend, that has started taking one of these drugs, one of these injections, specifically for weight loss, and they are having some pretty fantastic results so far. I thought I would share the journey with you guys from her. So she has been calling me every day and giving me feedback on exactly what she's feeling, you know, what happened when she took the medication, how she got on it in the first place. Took me through the whole thing so that I can bring it to you guys here. She didn't want to come online. She wants to have a bit of privacy on the situation, so I can understand that. I'll go through and give you completely honest feedback, exactly what she's told me, so you guys can make a qualified and informed decision yourselves if it's something that you're thinking about. So what are these drugs? You know, what do they do? Well, there's a couple of different options out there. I think there's like 3 different options in the main. She opted for something called Mountjaro. She actually got me to do a bit of hunting around online for her because she was unsure where to go for this stuff. She knew that there was a chance of going down an NHS route, but having heard from others, that can take many months, and it tends to be focused on people that are on the, you know, very large side, more so than people that are kind of on the borderline. So she was borderline overweight. She weighed about 75 to 76 kilos, I think 75.5 to be exact. So we're not talking huge, you know, she was like 5'2" or something, so we're not talking very big, but she had become very upset about her increased weight. It was affecting her, depressing her. She actually has some spinal damage which was preventing her from doing the exercise that she had previously done. So, you know, this is something we have to bear in mind, that not everyone falls into the category that you might imagine. Not everyone is just lazy and choosing not to exercise. Some people may have, you know, disabilities, whatever it is, that is making it very difficult for them to lose weight through normal means. She had previously been in very good shape indeed and been quite athletic in her job. Now she was unable to do that because of this spinal injury, and she had put on weight because, of course, when you're laid up with an injury, what do? You kind of sit around at home, you watch TV and you eat some nice food. That's exactly what she had done, and then she had got herself into a position that she was finding it hard to get back out of, and it was making her very depressed. So I went online for her, did a bit of research, and found out that there are many pharmacies offering these drugs as a weight loss solution in the UK, perfectly legitimately. There are also illegitimate sources of this stuff, which I would obviously advise you steer well clear of. There's been some horror stories from people that have either been sold completely inert items, and bearing in mind this is something you inject. Do you really want to inject some unknown liquid into your body that may end up causing you an abscess or all kinds of different health issues? Or at the very least, you just get ripped off, and it may not hurt you, but it certainly doesn't benefit you in any way either. So I only researched the legitimate means to get this stuff. Most of the pharmacies offered one or multiple options. Mountjaro seemed to be the most effective according to the online information and from the pharmacies themselves. It was also the most expensive. Now, these range from anything from around £150 per month to around £280 per month, depending on where you shop around and depending on dose, and we'll get to that in a minute. So I selected a pharmacy that was A, legitimate, B, looked to have pretty good pricing, and C, had a structure that allowed for a fairly easy way into this. You know, that there's lots of ways the pharmacies might assess a new patient, because this is a prescription medication. You can't just pay via credit card and then get the stuff the next day. There's some hoops that you have to jump through. In this specific case, she had to fill out a questionnaire that was asking things about health, about her, weight loss or weight gain, whatever it was, her body type, and how she felt about that. Then it asked her to supply specific details, you know, height, weight, all that kind of stuff. It obviously then runs off a BMI system. So the BMI system is a pretty bad system to run this kind of stuff off because it's very inaccurate. You know, currently I've got visible abs, and I would actually be classed as like borderline obese using BMI, because BMI can't tell the difference between fat and muscle. So if you're a very muscular person, for example, if you're a bodybuilder or a powerlifter or something like that, or a big rugby player, you may not be fat, but the BMI assumes that you are. So this was quite an easy one for her to do. And then after she had filled out that information, it asked to send in a picture of her in reasonably tight clothing. Now, she actually was quite embarrassed about this because obviously the chemist is wanting to take a look at this picture. I'm not sure if they use software or just human to look at it, and they're going to assess, have you told the truth? Because the temptation for some people might be to lie about height, lie about weight, and then you can kind of get this medication, right? So they're going to assess this picture. There's a bunch of criteria you have to meet for the picture. It can't be filtered or cropped or anything like that. It has to be a full body picture. She originally sent in a picture wearing a pair of tracksuit bottoms and a running top, you know, a baggy jumper. That was turned down, and they asked for another picture because that wasn't acceptable. So they were quite strict on this. They've clearly got a legal criteria by which they can prescribe these things. It's not just something they give out. And she sent in another picture, a little bit embarrassing, but this one was wearing kind of lycra gym gear. And obviously if you're not feeling good about your body, that can be you know, an embarrassing thing to do, but it's only going to be a pharmacist looking at it. So she sent that in, and then that was accepted. They were happy to go ahead, so payment was made. She started on a low dose. So with most of these injectable drugs, Mountjaro included, there is a dosing scale because they do have some side effects. And I'm guessing you start on a low dose and work up to make it as easy as possible in terms of these side effects. And I'll get into what she experienced in a minute. But she waited, and then about 3 or 4 days after payment, the stuff arrived in a very large box, and that was because it was cold packed. So this stuff has to be stored in a fridge, and it had come in like a bunch of ice packs, and it had clearly been delivered in like a 1-day express service. So good service from the pharmacy. I'll drop a link to those guys down below for anyone interested. I think she also has a product code which might give you some money off, and I think it will give her some money off in the future. So if you want to try and get a little bit of a discount on your first order, chuck the product code in there as well. She started off with the 2.5 milligram dosing. Again, she asked for my help with that because she was very unsure about needles and all that kind of thing. She was quite scared about the whole injection process, so I agreed to help her out with that. And it was unlike anything that I had come across before, because instead of a standard needle, which I'm quite used to from the TRT, this one came with a pen style application, which once you had read it and kind of got your head around it, it did make complete sense. You basically screw a needle into the end of this pen, and then it actually allows you to unwind a plunger at the back, so you kind of dial it out anti-clockwise, and that gives you a measured dose ready to go, and then you just simply push the plunger in. The needle itself is incredibly short. It's about 1/4 inch, and it looks to be even thinner than an insulin pin. So it's literally tiny. You know, anyone that's worried about the needle aspect, I think you can probably calm down, because it is ridiculously small, and the stuff obviously flows very, very nicely. It's not an oil-based medication. There's no need for a big fat needle, and it doesn't need to be intramuscular. Clearly, it's just into fat, so no problems with that. We went through the first injection. She did that. She was quite happy and felt that she would be confident to do her own injections after that, because it didn't hurt her at all. She was able to feel the injection site. You know, about an hour later, she said she started to get some mild discomfort at the injection site. It was just enough to know that something had happened there. It wasn't, you know, desperately painful or anything like that. She just knew that she had been injected there. She could feel it in the body. And then surprisingly, within an hour, she did start to feel different. She felt quite sick. She felt quite tired. When I say sick, I mean she felt sick in her stomach, like she might be sick, and she went and had a lay down. That actually went on for about 3 to 4 days, that she felt very mildly sick. It wasn't extreme, she wasn't actually sick, but she definitely felt mildly sick. She also had some quite mild headaches. These weren't migraines or anything like that, but just a mild background headache. She completely lost all appetite, and it was literally within an hour of taking this thing that, probably because she felt mildly sick, the last thing you want to do when you feel like that is start eating food. So that may or may not be as a result of the drug itself. That may be just because she started to feel ill. After 3 or 4 days, that general sickness feeling started to wear off, but as she started to feel better, she didn't feel hungry at all. So it had completely removed her impulsiveness to eat food, and she found herself sort of having to make herself eat at the right times, because otherwise she would literally forget to eat all day and just wouldn't have anything at all, which is something to consider, you know, that you could be in very dangerous territory there, that you're basically starving your body of any nutrients if you just don't eat, and you're also going to waste a ton of muscle tissue, and you're going to end up looking maybe like some of these celebrities have ended up, where they kind of have all this sagging skin and it doesn't look good at the end of the day. That's maybe because they haven't eaten anything at all and they've literally gone on a starvation diet, and one of the things that will happen there is you'll lose a ton of muscle mass. The chemist was incredibly good about providing some very, very informative materials through via email. The materials documented the importance of a healthy diet, a good exercise regime, and if one were to take this and make sure they ate their meals at the right time and they ate a healthy, balanced diet and undertook a reasonable exercise regime, they would lose body fat and they would come out of the other end looking pretty toned and trim at the same time, which is of course what most of us want as an end goal. You don't just simply want to drop fat and muscle. It's not a numbers exercise in terms of what you drop off the scales. You know, the results should be aesthetically pleasing at the end of the day. So she was having to remind herself, you know, in the morning to eat breakfast, for example. Then it got to lunchtime, okay. She had noticed her portions had halved and sometimes even quartered from what she used to be comfortable in eating. And she had just lost that drive. You know, she often found she had a drive to eat crisps and savoury snacks, pretzels, all that kind of thing, especially sat around in the evening. She would have a glass of wine, some crisps. She had lost all interest in doing that whatsoever. And interestingly, she had also lost interest in drinking the wine. You know, that's something she used to do on quite a regular occurrence on a sort of Friday and Saturday night. And she just didn't have an interest in that either. These injectable fat loss medications were originally designed for people that were diabetic, type 2 diabetes, to make them more insulin sensitive, but they did start to find that people that were being prescribed them were losing vast amounts of weight at the same time. And it seems to work through 2 or 3 different mechanisms. Number one is through the insulin sensitivity, that basically allows your body to process calories in a more efficient manner. Number 2, it was dulling hunger for people, so people just weren't feeling hungry either, which is kind of reshaping people's relationship with food. I now eat food because I have to, and because it's the time for breakfast or it's the time for dinner, and I know, okay, I've got to eat something now. I've had stages in my life where I've had a very unhealthy relationship with food, where I've literally craved food all day long. You know, that any time of day I would happily walk out to the kitchen and grab some more food, because I wasn't eating because I needed to, I was eating because my body craved some more carbohydrates, and I was just cruising from one sort of junk food high to the next. It was a dopamine fix rather than a calories in situation. And I think a lot of people fall within that parameter now because we're so bombarded with adverts for junk food. People just cruise from one kind of binge to the next, and they just want a dopamine hit. Our brains are excellent at getting us to fall in that dopamine hit cycle, and food is so easily available. It's just sat there in the kitchen waiting. You know, it's not like you have to go and visit a drug dealer to get a dopamine hit. You just literally open the fridge or the snack cupboard and it's there with you. So by the end of the first week, she had still had pretty much no appetite. You know, she was just eating food because she felt she should. She still enjoyed it when she ate it. She enjoyed the taste of the food, but she just found that she wasn't craving it and she couldn't eat nearly as much as she had used to. So it seemed like she was getting full quicker. At the end of the week, she weighed herself, started off at 75.5 kilos, weighed in at 72.4 kilos. That is a huge amount of weight loss for 1 week. You know, normally you would say aim for £1 a week of weight loss is a fairly healthy amount to lose, and £2 would be considered a very good amount to lose. You know, you've done really well if you've lost £2 of fat in a week. This was like nearly £5 of fat that she had lost in the first week. It was also incredibly obvious to me when I stopped in and saw her that I could see obvious changes to her facial features, whereas before she had quite rounded cheeks and the kind of puffy. They had now gone down substantially. There may be some water loss there as well because she had gone from eating quite a bit of junk food and drinking wine, for example, to none of that whatsoever. So there may be a bit of water loss involved. She was incredibly happy. You know, that most of the sick feelings are gone. We're now halfway through the second week and she now has no sick feelings at all. She's still on the lowest dose, which I believe is 2.5 milligrams, because the first month is all at that lower dose. She has no sick feelings whatsoever. The mild headaches have passed. She still talks about feeling a little bit tired and just in general, you know, not sort of having much get up and go. She has about the same amount of appetite as she previously did. It's slightly improved because of the lack of sick feeling, but the food situation, the relationship with food is still very much a kind of it's time to eat rather than, oh, I'm craving something. She hasn't had any crisps or anything like that, which is very unusual. You know, she was even surprised about that she has this stuff laying around the house. She could eat it. She hasn't told herself that she's not allowed anything like that at all. She just hasn't wanted to. So very, very interesting in the first week and a half. I'm keen to see if that level of weight loss persists into the second week. She continues to look good. She's just fit into an old waistcoat that she had that previously hadn't fitted her at all. So she's over the moon with that. And I think that's one of the real positives about these medications is I've worked with quite a lot of people, friends and friends of friends who have wanted help to go to the gym or to change their diets, and have seen that I've had some really good results and have asked for me to have input into what they should do. What I've noticed is it's the first 3 to 6 weeks that are the real danger point for people, because everyone can kind of make a choice. You know, it's easy for people to go, okay, I've had enough, I'm going to make a change, I'm going to lose some fat. We all do that from time to time. And then generally they want to jump on some sort of extreme diet and suddenly go to the gym or start running, whatever it is. And that lasts for quite a short period of time, because during that time, all these addictive things are working away with our brain at us. And they're saying, hey, you know, forget all this exercise stuff, come back to us, we're very comfortable, we'll give you this nice dopamine hit, you can relax on the couch. And any tiny excuse in that time period, you know, if someone stubs their toe, right, that's it, I can't go to the gym tonight. Oh, and if I can't go to the gym, is it worth still dieting? And then they lapse and then they struggle to get back to the gym. Or someone does gym for like the first week, diet for the first week, and they get to a Friday or Saturday night, think, oh, I've been so good all week, I really deserve a treat. And then they break out some booze, they start eating some pizza, and the next thing you know, the diet's out the window and they've never managed to get back to it. It's also quite soul destroying in the first 2 or 3 weeks of dieting and exercise, because you don't tend to see very immediate results. It takes quite a lot of time. You know, I say to people, you really need to be looking at it as a 6-month responsibility, and then kind of check your progress after 6 months, and you'll be pleasantly surprised. But of course, human nature, people want to see it much quicker than that. That's why they fall off, because sometimes the good results seem like they're so far in the distance for someone that they just can't be bothered to continue. I believe this drug gives people that burst that they might need right at the beginning, and once they've done 4 or 5 weeks of this drug and had some really phenomenal results, and they see that in the mirror, that may then be the impetus that they never want to go back to where they started. She is very happy thus far. She's going to continue using the medication for the foreseeable future. She's aiming to use it until she gets down to a set weight and aesthetic that she's looking to achieve, and everyone's going to be different in that regard. Some people feel that they only need to lose, you know, a few pounds. Other people might have quite extreme weight loss goals in mind. She's also being monitored during this progress by the chemists that supplied it. I'm guessing that they have a level of liability and legal responsibility to the patients that they have, you know, that they're not doctors, but you're still in effect a patient of theirs because they've prescribed you the medication based on what you've told them. So they're checking in, basically still providing diet info, asking how people are getting on. She may have an ability to move up in dosage for the next month when she gets offered a resupply, which she will have to pay for. This stuff cost her for the first month about £150 because it's at the lower dose. You also must bear in mind that that seems very reasonable, but the higher dosage is more expensive. You know, it goes up, like I said, to about £250. This was one of the cheaper options that I found on the market. There were other options where there were chemists overseas in countries that were, one would argue, maybe a little less legitimate sounding. Some people have gone with that route. I personally didn't feel comfortable doing that because some of those countries also have quite a reputation for supplying fake products as well. So you never really know if you're stepping outside of the UK's kind of regulated structure when it comes to chemists, then you're not exactly sure what you're getting there. I know these prices are going to seem amazing to people that are in America because they're paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars, maybe sometimes even thousands of dollars for exactly the same medication. So we are getting a good deal if you compare it to them. I also think it's worth the money when you consider that many people spend £100 to £200 a month on junk food and alcohol, and suddenly she's eradicated pretty much both of those costs. It's almost paying for itself. That now she's shopping healthily, she's eating less food, she's not buying bottles of wine. I mean, if she was spending £10 a week on wine, you know, there's £40 or £50 straight off the price of the medicine in the first place, and then that just leaves about £100 of junk food, which pretty much everyone in the UK probably spends about that on junk food if they eat junk food. I've eradicated it. I don't buy any of that. I do spend a lot of money on food in general, just quality fruits, veg and meats and whatever, but most of us could probably substitute the things we're doing that are a bit naughty, and then that money would go on to pay for this medication. So in those terms, I think it's pretty damn reasonable. I will give you an update in a couple of weeks, let you know how everything's going. Obviously then she will be moving up to a higher dose as well, and we can give you any updates on if she feels different on that higher dose, has it made her feel ill again, etc. Bear in mind, everyone's going to have different side effects. Just because these were her side effects, you know, some people might experience none whatsoever. Some people's side effects could be very severe and very dramatic, and it may be even life-threatening. So, you know, even aspirin has severe side effects for certain individuals. So we must be very mindful of that. I'm not suggesting people take this stuff. I'm suggesting that they research it, see if it's for them, go down the correct avenues, you know, take medical advice and go from there. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave your opinions down below. Love to hear from you if you've tried this stuff, if you've had great results, maybe you've tried it and had terrible results, whatever it is, let me know. Very interested to hear. Thanks a lot. Take care, and I'll see you next time.